All right, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. This is our 5th show, and this evening we are glad to have the Superintendent of the Conneaut Area City Schools with us, Michael Notar. Michael, thank you for being with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Glad that you can take the time to be with us, and for myself to get to know you and maybe some of the people that don't know you about the community. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You lose track over the years as far as how many years you're in education. I know it's over 20. I was a classroom teacher for about 7 years, and I've been in administration for about 15 or 16, but grew up and graduated south of here at Brookfield High School in Trumbull County, and served in different roles. Taught on the western part of Ohio for about 3 or 4 years. I've taught grade levels of 1st grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Was an elementary principal for about 5 years, K-4 principal in a couple different districts. Had the opportunity in my early 30s to go back to my hometown, Brookfield, and serve as the superintendent of schools there. And that was a unique situation, going back and having many teachers that taught me in high school as a student. I was there for a few years, went on to take a high school principal's job in Niles, and then I took an advancement in my career and went to Warren and served as the business manager and the superintendent there for a few years. And while serving as a superintendent there, those people that know Warren, it's a large district, about 6,000 students. And I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't the type of environment that I grew up in. Coming from a smaller town like Brookfield, I wanted to get back to that type of an atmosphere that I was familiar with and used to. And so Conneaut's position opened up, I applied, and things worked out. I'm entering my 2nd year here now. It's been a great fit. It's a wonderful community. It reminds me a lot of growing up in Brookfield and having that small town atmosphere.
Speaking of Brookfield High School, we have another administrator here in Conneaut that also came from Brookfield.
We were in the house. Yeah, Rita's from Brookfield too as well.
Yeah.
I think she's a little older than me.
You mentioned all these grade levels you taught. Did you have a favorite grade level?
I think it's all how you make of it when you're with the children. I think my scariest feeling was I was always in elementary as a teacher. I was an elementary principal, and then all of a sudden I took a high school principal's job in Niles, and I still remember the bell ringing for the first day of school, and I thought, what am I doing around these big kids? I'm so used to being around little kids. But then you realize that even though they're in high school, they're big. They're still little kids. They're just in bigger bodies. They want to learn. They're energetic. They're fun to talk to, and so I actually really enjoyed being a high school principal. It was enjoyable. But no, I think it's all what you make of the grade levels. I love teaching 1st grade, just the intensity of the students and wanting to learn and actually doing anything as a 1st grade teacher, and they had fun doing it. But then there were benefits of teaching 5th and 6th grade with their independent, their independent skills and being able to do things on their own. So I think every grade level has its advantage. It's how you are as a person and how you react to those students.
What sports, clubs, or hobbies were you interested in?
Well, all through high school, again, that's the benefit of going to a smaller district. Very similar, we have a lot of our students that participate in more than one sport. So I myself, going through school, participated in baseball, basketball, and football, and actually got talked into one of the coaches running cross country my senior year while playing those 3 sports, and I won't do that again. It sounded like a good idea at the time, but after the first meet, I didn't want to run that far any longer, and I still don't run today. So those sports have always been an interest. I've always been an avid baseball person, mostly because I've coached my son in baseball from the age of 5 to the age of 18 in baseball, and so being around him as a parent and a coach and really loving the sport and teaching kids how to play the sport the correct way and do it as a professional and handle himself correctly and so forth. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I grew up on athletics, and I was the only boy in the household, and my sisters weren't athletic. So, but just being around friends that were athletic and so forth. But that's why I'm a firm believer in extracurricular activities, whether they're athletic or whether they're academic, because it gives opportunities for students to participate, develop friendships, learn respect, responsibility, and things like that.
When you were growing up through your school years, when did you make the decision that education was going to be what she was going to go into?
It's a great question. I owe a lot of it to my sister, my next oldest sister. She's 6 years older than me. She's entering her 30th year being a teacher in the Youngstown City Schools, and she was kind of my role model, because my other sisters were moved out of the house, and she lived in the house with me the longest time. And you know, she went to Slippery Rock University, majored in education, so I was always around her in that talk. And she actually gave me my first job as a young teenager, working with mentally handicapped adults and children, and at a local YMCA, and having that experience of working with them and seeing what I can do as far as providing them with an opportunity to be successful, that really got me interested in education. So yeah, I owe a lot of it to my sister. She was definitely my role model, and she's a phenomenal teacher, and she has been for the past 29 years, and that's kind of nice. Her and I have those conversations, and she can look at it from a teacher perspective, and I look at it from an administrative perspective, so it's a nice person to talk to.
Michael Notar, Superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools, is my guest. Michael, take us through the time when you found out about this job in Conneaut. Did you have any hesitations? Were you ready to go for it right away? Or take us through that period.
Yeah, actually, you know, like I said, serving as a superintendent in a larger school district, I enjoyed my position in Warren. But it just wasn't something that, like I said, that I grew up with. And coming from a smaller town, that's what I was used to most of my life. So when I saw the position open up in Conneaut through the Ashtabula County ESC, I didn't hesitate at all. Obviously, you know, when you're looking for jobs, you do the research and you see where the districts are academically and financially. And you know, I knew they're, you know, looking at the finances and, you know, where they were, and there needed to be some adjustments, and looking at how the district scored academically, I just felt that my experiences that I had, I wanted to bring them to another district. So yeah, I didn't hesitate at all. I jumped on it as soon as I saw it and began the process. And I had shared last year when I was hired that even after the first interview with the board, I knew it was a perfect fit. And just the way the board was, the interaction with them, they were very comfortable to talk to. And I walked out of the first interview knowing that if I get the opportunity, it's a perfect fit. And things worked out.
Now, what about that interview with the school board? Is it a one-on-one with each member, or is it as a group?
It's as a group. You know, every district does it a little bit different. You know, Conneaut, as well as other Ashtabula County schools, usually use the services of the ESC to conduct superintendent searches. So I interviewed with all 5 board members. At the time, Kathleen Seminaro, who was the director of human resource for the ESC, and then the county superintendent. So all 7 were in the interviewing process, and all 7 actively participated and asked questions and so forth. But yeah, I was excited when they called back for a second interview, and overly excited when they called me to offer me the position. So.
Michael, you're not a very old man. I'm going to say, should I say early 40s maybe? 42?
Yeah, that's very good.
46. 46.
Yeah.
From when you went to school to today's school, do you see any differences? You know how they say things change, constantly change.
Yeah.
What do you see changing?
It's changed a lot. It really has. And I share this with our teachers all the time and with our administrators. I think the biggest change when we were younger, we were trained to go to school. We sat, we memorized the information, we learned it, and that was just the way it was easy for us as kids to sit there for 45, 50 minutes, an hour, because you did, or you got in trouble, and you know you had the experience of having to go home and deal with mom or dad or both. And in my case, I behaved in school because I was more nervous about my mother than I was the principal at the time. But times have changed. I mean, we live in a society where it's fast-paced. You know, as a younger student, we took our time when we did a topic, and we looked in the encyclopedia, we reviewed information, where kids nowadays want it right now, and it's at their fingertips, which has caused teaching to change. You know, our teachers and our principals have to understand, and they do, that our kids, we have to engage them more hands-on activities, more small group, more moving around the classroom. It's no longer, sit for 45, 50 minutes and listen to a teacher lecture. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes of that kids can handle nowadays, and now they want to move on to something else. But, so society's changed a lot. The way our kids are learning has changed, and that's the unique thing about education is and that's what we're in the process of doing as a district. I can grow better and be a better superintendent and administrator. I think all of us can. So my goal as a superintendent is providing professional development, providing resources for our teachers and our administrators to look at different ways to do things and educate them, because we're all looking to be better and provide better opportunities for our kids. But it's easy to say it, but to actually practice that. And that's my job, to try to help our teachers develop that.
Well, one of those changes I think you implemented this year was the starting time and the ending time of school day. I think it affects the elementary kids more. They're going a little bit later in the day. What's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, a lot of it. Well, one the change was because of the implementation of high school transportation. We haven't had high school transportation for a number of years due to budget cuts. And so the rest of the district really runs off the high school schedule. So those students get picked up first. So normally in years past, when high school transportation wasn't there, the K through 8 build, those grade levels can start any time they wanted because they were the only ones being bused. But now with high school being bused, they get transported first because of a lot of our students go into A-Tech, and they have to be there at a certain time. But the flip side of that too, it's an advantage, because if you look at all the research, and there's a big push across the entire nation in regards to starting and end times for students in school. And there's a lot of data that supports a later start time for students because of there's many kids that are starting school very, very early, even earlier than our students start, and they're just not ready that early in the morning. I even noticed that with my own two kids. Is you have kids as young as 3rd, 4th grade that have a cell phone, that may have those cell phones on them in their bedroom at nighttime. And so what they're starting to notice is kids are sleeping less at night, so when they have to wake up earlier in the morning for school, it takes them a few hours before they actually get going. So there's some lost time of instruction in the morning. So a later start time does support, students performing a lot better academically too. So it kind of helped us in that sense. We were able to bus high school kids plus have a little bit later start time for our K through 8 kids.
I know some research points to, I know we could never do this because of the sports schedules, but some research that I was looking at supports the younger kids actually going earlier in the day than the high school kids.
Yeah.
Kind of a reversal, but because of the sports. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and that's it. Actually, I mean, it would be ideal as a whole entire district if all our students can start after 8 o'clock in the morning, but because of sports and certain programs and so forth, we really can't do that for certain grade levels. They have to be out at a certain time because of that. Yeah, so that, especially with the high school and the middle school, grade 7 and 8, because they do have extracurricular activities that start at 4:30, so it's hard to go to school till 4 o'clock when you have to be at an event at 4:30, so. But yeah, it's, and so far so good. We'll look at the bus schedules for next year and may have to make a tweak here and there, but I was just excited because we have some high school students that are taking advantage of the high school transportation. Originally when we did it, I think we had 97 freshmen available for transportation. About half those students take advantage of it. The other half may have siblings that they can ride to school with. So our transportation supervisor now is looking at some sophomore and junior students that are close to the bus stops and need a ride that they can get on the bus as well. So to me that's great, because these are kids that didn't have a ride to school but now have an opportunity to get to school every day and get a ride home as well. So it's been an advantage for them too.
When you first got to Conneaut a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, what were your initial impressions about the district?
And I shared this with the board just in my first interview. It was neat pulling through the center of town. It just brought back my childhood growing up in a small town, and people knowing one another. It's nice when I can sit at one table and have a meeting with all my principals. It's nice when I can be in the buildings as a superintendent and know the teachers, know the students, they know who I am. That I was very impressed with. And I would say just our whole entire staff as a whole group. There's some phenomenal teachers in the district, administrators, and that they're committed to the district. They've been here for years, and that's nice to see. You know, I've moved around in my career, and a lot of it was advancement. But I'm at a point in my career now, and I shared it with the board, that I want some consistency too as well. I want to establish and be a part of a district and a community where the teachers and principals feel the same way, that they want to be here, they're committed to the district and our students, and I think that's what impressed me the most.
You have 4 school buildings here in Conneaut. 3 of them, of course, are fairly new, within 10 years. What's our enrollment like in each of the buildings?
You know, actually, I just looked at that today because I was filling out a report. At Lakeshore, we have a little over 500 students now.
A lot of K through.
That's pre-K2 or preschool through pre-2. And a lot of that too is the Head Start. We did bring some Head Start preschool programs into our Lakeshore building this year as well. So those numbers add on to it, as well as our preschool numbers. Gateway, our 3-5 building, is right around 380, 390 students. The middle school, which is grade 6 through 8, is very similar to that, 380, 390. And then the high school is right around 450 students total. About 17, it always fluctuates between 1,750 kids to about 1,800 students total for the whole district.
Do you like the open enrollment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the good thing about open enrollment, and some people may be for it or against it, I look at it that if we provide a wonderful educational opportunity for students and they want to come here, that's great, let them come. It's an option for parents. If kids leave us, then we have to look at why they're leaving us, because if there is a reason why, then let's look at why they're leaving and try to fix or make some adjustments on why they're leaving. And that's one thing, that we're looking into, is students that we lose, let's figure out why they're leaving. There has to be a reason. And if it's something that we can fix to correct that problem, then let's go ahead and fix it and look at it. So, yeah, I just think it gives parents an opportunity. And if you're doing things great, then that's wonderful, because people don't want to leave and people want to come. And that's our goal.
You talked about busing earlier, and you've done wonders on that. Do you think that is a privilege or a right for the child?
Well, it's always been communicated as a privilege to ride the bus to school. Obviously, with the state law is, transportation doesn't have to be provided for any students in grades 9 through 12. And transportation, any student living outside the 2-mile radius are the only ones that have to be provided transportation. So even though we say privilege, by law, those students that are 2 miles or greater, grade K through 8, by law, are provided transportation. So we really can't say privilege, because it is mandated. You have to do that. I think when you could talk about it being a privilege is when you make that a little bit better. Meaning our district, Conneaut, any student K through 8 that is a mile or greater gets bused. So we've made it a mile closer. We could make it 2 miles, but the board years ago elected it's only a mile. So those students living outside a mile. So there it's a privilege for those students to 1 mile to 2 miles, because we don't, as a district by law, don't have to provide it, but we do. And the same thing with our high school students. It's a privilege for us to be able to provide transportation for those students, because by law we don't have to. If I had it my way, and I've always said that I think there's 2 T's in education that we need more money for, and that's technology and transportation. If I had it my way, I'd love to bus every student and pick them up at the end of their driveway, but unfortunately with budgets you can't do that. It would cost, we wouldn't be able to financially support that as a district.
Parent-teacher conferences, talk to me a little bit about that. I know when my wife taught a few years back, they had them on a Thursday evening and again on a Friday morning. Is that the same format, or is that
Same
changed?
format now, yeah. And we're looking at that. We're going to look at the percentage of parents that come to the evening compared to the percentage of parents that come during the day. And just see if it's beneficial to stick to the day parent-teacher conferences, or if it would be more beneficial to have 2 evenings available for parents per building rather than an evening in a day. So we'll take a look at those. The principals actually just supplied that to me, the number of parents that showed up for conferences at each of the buildings, and we'll take a look at that. So right now it's still 1 evening, 1 half day.
I know they used to be very well attended, especially
So,
elementary, middle school level.
I think we had a great attendance, K through 12, our first round of parent-teacher conferences. It was very busy in all 4 buildings, which is great. And I think the weather plays a large part too. It was fairly nice at that time, and people were out, but we had a great turnout.
Do you try to make yourself available during parent-teacher conferences? Do you visit the buildings at the time?
Yeah, I try to get out to different buildings. I kind of got stuck in my office is in the middle school this year, so I went down to see how they were going, and started talking to some parents that were trickling in, and so I was able to get there and gateway this first round, and after that, but I try to get out to the other buildings. But it all depends on who I run into, parents, and how the conversations go and so forth.
A few years ago, there was a discussion about all-year school, all-year-long school. Do you like that idea, or scratch it?
I love the idea.
You like the idea, okay.
Actually, yeah.
Tell me, why do you like that idea?
I just think, it's, we all know, and our administrators know, I think parents know that, we have a huge responsibility as a school district, as administrators and teachers, educating our kids. And I tell our teachers and our principals that at the end of the day, you should go home tired. That means you put in a hard day's work with your students. And it is tiresome. It is for our teachers, it is for our students. And I think even now when we took our short Thanksgiving break and come back, everybody comes back re-energized. Our students do, our teachers do. When you come back from Christmas break, it's the same thing. So that's one reason why I like year-round schooling is you teach for a certain number of weeks, you get a couple of weeks off, and then you come back. It kind of gives the teachers and the students an opportunity to re-energize, but not lose all the material that they've been taught over those weeks they were in school. And you don't lose that, 2.5 to 3 months of lost instruction during the summer, where you spend a good portion of it at the start of the year. So you could say you lose 3 months, but you almost lose 4 months because the first month is almost review. And you have to, because the students are busy during the summer, and you just kind of have to refresh their memory. So there's 2 advantages. One, I think it's refreshing for the teachers and students to take that little break and come back re-energized, and 2, they don't lose that information that they've been learning throughout the year.
Would that be a state issue, or would that be up to the local school districts if that were?
Well, yeah, a lot of it, I think it's a combination of state and county. If you look at our county, we have students that go to Chcuk, and we have students that go to other buildings outside the district. So, we still have to provide transportation to those, and so now, instead of having one schedule, you might have a schedule for our district, a schedule that you have to transport kids to Chcuk and other. So, it's a state issue where if it was something that had to happen, I'm sure as an individual district, we could look at that possibility, but it's highly unlikely just because of all the other outside places that our students go to. We may not be in session when those school systems or districts are in session, which could cause could propose a problem with that. So,
Make a prediction. 2025, where we have all year school.
Yeah, I thought it would come sooner than, I really think it will come, I've always said that, I think, I try to look down the road, I think it will be here before I retire. I truly do, I see it coming down, and as Ohio starts to, there are some school districts now still that don't have central air, and we're very fortunate, there's some school districts still in the state of Ohio that don't. And so, I can't see those kids going mid-July when it's extremely hot. That would be difficult, and we have a school district like that in Ashtabula County where it'd be very hard for those kids to go through the summer months. But I think once all the Ohio schools go through that OSFC project and they'll have newer buildings or some type of central air, then there can be a push towards that. I see it coming sooner than later.
Unfortunately, with recent events and stuff, what's our school security like?
We've done a very good job as a district being proactive. Coming into the district, all our teachers are trained in ALICE training, which is a training for an active shooter being on school premises or in a building. Just this past year, we did a refresher. We had the police officer from the University of Akron come and did the ALICE training with all our staff again. Also did the training with our bus drivers. We took a tour of the facilities to see if there were any areas that we needed to focus on that help improve security. We upgraded, just recently, we received a grant through ODE, so over the course of the past year, we've updated all our buzzer systems and our security cameras for the main entrances of all buildings. All our classrooms are, they have the barricade, which if there's a, if there is an active shooter in the building, they have the, within seconds to put it in the floor, and it locks the door closed where they can't get in at all, which is a great feature to protect our students. Just recently, and I talked to the board about it, we were proactive in just this current school year, and they're just finishing up all our main entrances and every exit door throughout the whole entire district. We put bulletproof film on the windows. And again, that's just an added feature. It's, the board and I felt it was money worth spending for the protection of our students. And so, as a district, I actually just met with 2 people from the Homeland Security last week because there's plans that have to be submitted to the Ohio Department of Education on all our emergency operations and how we handle them. And they were impressed at the amount of security that we have as far as what we have available in our buildings. And that was good to hear. They were, especially 2 people from Homeland Security that are praising what we're doing. So that was very, very nice to hear.
Yes, very nice indeed. Tough question. Conneaut Spartans, of course, are not in a conference. They'd love to be in a conference. Is that part of your job to try to get them in a conference, or is that an athletic administrator's job, or whose job is that? How do they get in a conference? I guess the question is.
Yeah, it's something that I was aware of when taking the position. We've actively pursued trying to get into the All-American Conference. We've actively pursued to try to get in the Northeastern Athletic Conference, and so those options are still on the table. I just recently resubmitted letters of interest to both those conferences. I've had several meetings with a couple of school districts in Ashtabula County, around 4 or 5 school districts that were kind of unified, that we're looking at starting our own conference.
Like an Ashtabula County conference?
Could be some school districts, the discussions on the table, obviously if you look at all the Ashtabula County schools, they're all in a conference other than Conneaut. It's a unique county because you have 7 school districts, but you have 1, 2, 3, you have 3, out of the 7 school districts, 1's independent and the other are in 3 different conferences. And that's kind of unique.
Very unique.
When you go south and you get to Trumbull County or Mahoning County, a lot of them are in the same conference. They're not in multiple conferences, maybe 2 at the most, but for us up here, it's a unique situation that we're kind of like that. So, we've begun the conversations. I've reached out to other districts, both private and public, to draw up some interest. And so there is some interest out there as far as drawing up, and we'll continue those conversations. I kind of leave the districts, I don't name them just because, they may be currently affiliated with the conference and so forth. But that's part of my job, and one thing that I'm determined to try to get fulfilled here while I'm here is to get our at least our athletes an opportunity to compete in a conference and be part of a league. So there's some positive conversations out there, but it takes time. We all know when a league forms, you're 2 years out of starting in a league because of scheduling. A lot of it runs off of football. A lot of leagues, including ourselves, we're booked for the next 2 years out for football. So if we were to start a league up, get accepted into one, we have to play our 2 years out for football. So.
Have you received any feedback as to why the Spartans are not in a conference? Are there any things you're hearing?
Yeah, a lot of that, you hear mixed things, from the past and from community members on why. I've heard it's our location, I've heard it was our facilities. Well, the facilities questions is off the table now. We have a wonderful basketball facility. Our Spark complex is beautiful for football and for track and
state-of-the-art track.
And recently, with the city of Conneaut receiving a grant through the Conneaut Foundation to refurbish or resurface the tennis courts on Liberty Street, those will be up to perfect playing condition come springtime. So The facilities question, that's out the window. I've expressed that to the leagues that might have not looked at us in the past because of our facilities. Well, that is not a problem any longer. So then to me, it's hard to question location when, there's a couple districts in leagues that are 15 minutes away from us. And so that's been my question to some of the leagues that I've been applying to as well. So just so I have an answer on why. And sometimes you don't get the answer. A lot of times it may just, they don't want to expand at this particular time and really don't give a reason. So
I know you have a lot of tough jobs, but this one has to be real tough. We're entering that season now where you got to make a decision. Am I having school today or am I not having school today? That's got to be awfully tough. And do you check with other superintendents to see what they might be doing? I know you check with the city police department as well.
Yeah, that's probably the worst part.
It's got to be a headache.
And a lot of it is, the state did convert where it's no longer days, it's hours. The amount of hours that our kids, or number of minutes our kids.
Is that better for you?
A lot better. It gives us a little bit more flexibility, it does. So it makes the decision process a lot easier when decided. But in all honesty, I've told people, we do communicate as a group. I do a lot of, we communicate, all 7 county school districts communicate. We're on the phone, texting, talking to one another as early as 4 o'clock in the morning on what's going on, because it varies from county to county. We may not get anything, but then PV and GB get a ton, and vice versa. But districts that we're pretty similar to, that I spend a lot of time talking to are Buckeye and Ashtabula City because of being along the lake, and it's very similar in those districts. So I do spend the majority of my time with those two. But I'm one, I don't like delays. Being a parent myself, delays create a headache for parents.
2-hour delay?
Right.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, it creates, because being a parent myself, and if I ever left my children at home and they're on a 2-hour delay, I'm leaving the house and don't know if they're going to school, if they're not, and if they aren't, then who's going to watch them if they are, it creates a headache for parents. So I don't like 2-hour delays. I don't think I used one when I was in my former district, and I don't think I've used one since I've been here. So my feeling is, the way I look at it, and I've shared it with our administrators, at 5:30 in the morning, depending on what the wind chill is and what the weather is at that particular time. Now, they may say it may clear up in 3-4 hours, but our buses aren't on the road in 3-4 hours, they're on the road in the next 30 minutes. So I kind of base the decision on what it looks like at 5:30 in the morning, and then I make that call. And sometimes it's a good one, sometimes it may be nice at noon and the snow melts, but it's safety first, and I'm okay with it being nice at noon and our kids are home and safe rather than running that risk and having an accident out on the road. So.
If it's not snow and you got to make a decision on cold, I've heard a Cleveland area weather person say that the temperature you look at is -15.
Right. Yeah, and that's usually, that was the big debate a couple of years ago when we started getting all these wind chill days. It started about 3 years ago where, you were canceling more for wind chill than when you were for snow. So there was a lot of discussion between all the counties on what's an acceptable wind chill. And there was some discussion with the National Weather Service to see what is, and actually the recommendation as far as canceling school is higher than -15, but you don't want to go to the extreme. And so it's pretty similar across the different counties I've been in, at -15 degrees, and that's wind chill or temperature. So the wind chill is like I said, at 5:30 in the morning, if it's -15, then we're going to shut down for the day. So, and it may get 0 by noon, but like I said, our kids aren't on the bus at noon, they're on the bus at 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning. So.
Let me close with this, Michael. 10 years from now, what would you like to see the Conneaut School District look like?
I've shared it, and I'm very blunt with our teachers and our administrators that I think we have a wonderful opportunity here with the teaching staff we have, with the administrators. My goal is within the next 10 years, I want to be the best school district academically in Ashtabula County. Right now we're not, and that's our goal. We're going to get there. We have people in places that, to me, and that's my job as a superintendent, to provide professional development for our teachers, for our administrators, on things that we can do differently to help improve our student achievement.
Now, excuse me, when you say we're not there, are we far off from being there?
You know, if you know, it's hard. I mean, obviously, this past year you can't look at state scores because of all the mix-up with the park assessments and all the confusion with the state and so forth. But if you look at previous report cards, we are, you know, we're in the middle to low as far as compared to the other 7 school districts in the county. And there's areas that we can do better in. And
is that all levels?
Yeah, it's all levels. Yeah, it's at all levels. And even if you look at, you know, and we've talked about it, and our high school knows with our graduation rate, it's the second lowest in the county, which we know is unacceptable. I think the only district lower than us graduation is Ashtabula City. And so, you know, that's stuff that when you look at it, what can we do to get our numbers up? What can we do to improve our student achievement? And, you know, our kids aren't going to change. Our kids are our kids. And I just had this discussion with one of our principals today is, our kids are our kids. And what has to change is what we do as administrators and teachers and working with those kids. And how that changes is by providing support for our teachers, for our administrators, professional development on how can I be a better teacher and how can I be a better administrator and how can I be a better superintendent. There's always room to grow. And we're going to provide those opportunities for our teachers, and we're going to provide those opportunities as far as professional development for our principals, including myself, on what can I do to be a better superintendent to help support our teachers and our students moving forward.
Well, Michael, you've been great. I'm going to have you come back.
Absolutely.
And because there's a lot more we can talk about.
Yeah.
So that's Michael Notar, Superintendent of the Conneaut Area City Schools, in this edition of Around the Town with Chuck, and we'll see you next week.